So welcome to the podcast. I probably shouldn't. I think that's part of our our branding problem is we actually show our faces. Like,
well, apparently the new thing in podcasts now is like they like a lot of. I've noticed a lot of YouTubers are starting. I got to turn this off. I can't watch us like talk to each other. That'll fuck me up big time. But a lot of YouTube podcasts like they fucking hire animators to like animate their entire show.
That sounds terrible.
But they don't. But it's not like they're like doing like the lip capturing and stuff. Like it's just they just like there are these like creepy stills that like they kind of move when like one person's talking and like and maybe a hand raises or something. And it's just weird. Like I get like especially if you're putting it on YouTube, you want a visual element to make your show more interesting. But like it's just fucking odd to me.
Webcams are relatively cheap anymore. Just do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, what's weird is a lot of these podcasts are done by people who don't want to show their face, which I can understand.
Yeah, we
didn't want to for years, but then you don't have a video element really. Anyway, well, yeah, fucking podcast night day. Are you excited? I'm excited.
I'm always excited because not so much because we have the podcast to do, because who cares about that? Obviously, nobody. But it's Wednesday, so at least we're halfway through the week. That's like
means nothing to the unemployed, but sure.
I know. I'm just rubbing that whole 9 to 5 thing in, aren't I?
Yeah, the dad 9 to 5 life you live. I'm all about that, Well,
I'm also excited because we finally decided to we were trying to do the podcast and then like go to the gym and then eat. I hate eating before I work out because then that's just a whole mess of problems that causes. But then like if we do the podcast, we start about 6:30 my time and run about 2 hours. By the time we get to the gym and get home, it's like 10:30. So that's really, really late to wait to eat. So then we tried let's eat really fast before the podcast and then do it, then go to the gym. That didn't work so well. So we finally decided we got smart and we're like, well, Wednesday could just be our off day because you really shouldn't work out 7 days a week anyway. But what that means,
I've noticed I need that routine though. As I've been working out is if I take an off day, which I did. I kind of fucked up my sleep schedule the last couple of days, so I don't know when I should be working out because it's it's 5 a.m. and I'm wide awake. Maybe I could do it now, and so I took yesterday off just because I was awake too long, and you just once you take one off, it's fuck it. See, I can drink nothing but soda now and stuff.
I'm just
after a month of working out, my body's back in tip-top shape.
Just finished off this 20-ounce Mountain Dew Kickstarter and opened a beer. So yeah, that's the problem on your off days. Is I tend to do that. And then for me, if I take a day off, then the day after, I'm usually still okay, now I had a day off, I need to get back. But if something comes up and you have 2 days you take off, then chances are I'll end up missing a month because you're well, I've already missed 2 days. I don't feel like going back ever.
Yeah. Well, because fucking working out sucks.
You said, when you get it as a routine, it's fine. I'm almost not excited for it, but you're yeah, this is great and I feel good. But once you realize that, wait a minute, I'm not stuck with this routine. Why am I doing this?
Once I started feeling some of the benefits of working out regularly, then I kind of was looking forward to it and kind of you get competitive with yourself.
Benefits of working? I haven't noticed. We've been going for 3.5 months now, or 3 months-ish, and I haven't lost a pound, but that's probably because I do things
I'm not talking about losing weight. I can't lose fucking
I can
shit
actually
to save my
feel
life.
Separate muscles in my arms now, though. Instead of just one amorphous blob of an arm, I'm wait, that's a muscle and that's a... So yeah, I guess...
When I say benefits, I mean after you've lifted something a lot, just pick up a TV remote and you feel you feel like Thor, and it's amazing. And then we got people posting links already.
Oh, but mine deletes it automatically, so ta-da.
Anywho, were we on a topic or were we...
Not really, we're just, I mean, there was no important video games that any of us played
Not really, like, because I have nothing new to talk about. I beat Zelda.
There's no beating Zelda. There's just getting over Zelda.
I beat it and now I'm over it.
I saw you talking about like you're not like super driven to 100% it, or at least not like.
Yeah, like, and this is probably this podcast compared to last week is probably going to seem a lot more negative, but it's because I think the game's excellent. I had a really good time with it, but people are like, it surprises me to see people like, oh, I got to do all the shrines and stuff in this game, because like I don't have any desire to keep playing it, really. Like, yeah, and to be fair, that happens with most Zelda games for me. Is like I beat the final boss. There's a lot of other stuff I could do, but I don't really want to. So, like, when I do want to like fully complete a Zelda game, like that's a mark of a really good game to me. But this one. So I was on the Giant Bomb forums talking with people about like what were some of the things you didn't like about the game, and now that it's been a couple days,
are you allowed to like say that anything negative about it? Like I thought if you did, you were crucified, but
which is weird because that game has a lot of problems. Like it's so weird that people have this like defense of it. Like if you really really like it, that's great, And I see a lot of the good things about it. But this is one of the most obviously flawed fucking games to come out in recent memory. Like the problems with it are very obvious. Like the weapon durability system is not a good idea.
Oh, but people are defending that.
But they're ridiculous then. Because I'll tell you, like, by the time I fought Ganon, I had expanded my weapon inventory, but I was still only using 2 slots. And then when I would get into a dungeon or whatever, I would use the Master Sword because it's powered up and it doesn't break. When you're in dungeons, when you're out of dungeons, it does break down, but it doesn't like completely break. It has to recharge. But once you're in a dungeon, it does like twice the damage and it never breaks. So
that's basically the dungeon sword.
Yeah. So once you get the Master Sword, like that's... like every weapon you pick up from then on is useless because the Master Sword's going to be your best weapon. It attacks faster. It does more damage than mostly anything you'll pick up. There's no reason to. So I don't know how many weapon slots I had. Let's say 12. So I would use 2 weapons usually and the Master Sword. That left 9 weapons that I had picked up over the course of the game that I just wouldn't touch. Because I always felt like, oh, I'll need this for something. Like, I'll need this because like I don't want to break it on just a regular ass fucking moblin or something. It's a bad system. And it ties into like just how kind of clunky all the inventory stuff is. So it's not even like a satisfying, frantic, like, oh fuck, my weapon broke, I got to pick up the next one. Like. It's just a tedious, well, that broke, go to my menu. Okay, what am I okay with destroying now? Because shit just breaks like immediately. And Jim Sterling, after his, now infamous 7 out of 10, oh my God, in a review, he put out a video kind of shitting on the people who were giving him crap for the score, but also talking about like how like annoying this weapon durability system is, because even by the standards of weapon durability systems, this is especially annoying because all your shit breaks after like 5 hits. And you can get weapons that have better durability, but like for the most part, it's still that thing. Like if it's something you want to keep, you just will never use it in the game. If it's something that you're okay using, you're not going to have it much longer than like 2 fights.
Yeah, that just seems ridiculous to me. Like, I get wanting to encourage people like to maybe try different weapons and do that through durability, but like your weapon should last you like an adventure. Like if you're like, I'm going to go clear these woods out, like you shouldn't.
And the weapon variety thing argument doesn't hold any water to me either, because like the weapons don't feel that different. Like combat doesn't feel that different. I have a heavier weapon. Well, it doesn't matter because you're still trying to time your dodge just so you can get that slow motion flurry strike thing that it does, where like everything slows down and then you can hit the enemy like 10 times. Unless your fucking weapon breaks in the middle of it, then you can only hit them once.
Well, they could have made that like more mature, where like your weapon breaks, but then you take the broken handle and impale them with it. It's to actually like reward you for your weapon breaking in the middle of a combo.
That would be fucking rad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you do more damage on the last hit of your weapon, but it's not like it's
not like an insta-kill hit or something.
Yeah, like there's no like dramatics. Like, yeah, if Link's sword broke, but then he drove what was left in the fucker's eye, that would be a great game.
Yeah.
And
our little Linky's growing up.
Like, I made a joke that like if he just like chopped Ganon's head off, like Jim Sterling said something else on Twitter about like how like they always just seal Ganon, like they never actually, kill Ganon. And like if they just like,
but he'd be unemployed if he killed Ganon. He wouldn't get any more video game gigs. Like maybe it's not Smash even Brothers, but
it's not even like a job thing for him. It's like the job for his children. Like it's this weird fucking.
Yeah. Like, he wants to ensure that his lineage are all heroes as well.
Right. But it's like if you just chopped his head off and then like Link just ruled Hyrule in an era of fucking fear and blood.
That would be pretty sweet. You just get to like because ultimate power corrupts ultimately or whatever.
Absolute.
Yeah, I know.
Well, ultimately, power corrupts.
Yeah,
that's the same.
Close enough. But so you just have like
Zelda
right. That I like it. Nintendo. I hope they listen into this because I think we've had some great ideas for the next Zelda game. And they seem like right in line with Nintendo's like traditions and ideals too.
Well, some of the ways that like Link has sealed Ganon over the years have been fucking brutal. Like Wind Waker has my favorite where like the final blow is always like it comes off a parry where Link like rolls to the side and then like leaps in the air and then jabs the fucker in the fucking forehead and just but it's weird, like that doesn't just kill him, like he turns to stone. And I was like, when has the Master Sword ever done that? Ever? Like, why is he just a rock now? But that's how magic works, I guess.
Yes.
But the thing I can't help but really shit on when it comes to this durability system and the inventory stuff is like in some ways it all would have been made better if they stuck with their plan of like managing it through the Wii U tablet stuff.
Right.
But by not doing that, it's even more damning because like it's double downing on all the annoying inventory and maintenance stuff you had to do in Ocarina of Time that people always like if they're looking for something to complain about Ocarina of Time for. It's like, well, I had to keep going and switching my boots and shit. And it's like, and that stuff was annoying. And then they made the 3DS version where you didn't have to do that anymore. And then, like, they made the HD remakes for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and all the inventory stuff is gone because it's right on the tablet. And now, not only is it all that annoying menu shit back, but it's even worse because you have to do it for fucking everything. You have to do it for your weapons. You have to do it for cooking. You have to do it for like potions and meals that will like let you go into a next area.
Which is where our podcast title comes from, by the way, the One Pot Meals, because I was watching that. I love that he just like dumps everything into a pot and it's like, which I mean, it's fine. That's a lot of video games do that. But
the idea behind cooking is not bad. I kind of liked that you had to prepare, like for whatever comes next, you had to make sure you had food for it because nothing would give you hearts. Like, I think that's actually not a bad system. It's just poorly implemented because it doesn't, you can't remember recipes. You can't just select a recipe that would just cook it for you if you have the ingredients. You have to go and grab all the ingredients and throw it all in a pot, which is fine for like experimenting. Like, I want that option to like, well, I don't know what, fucking these 2 mushrooms and a fucking prime rib will do, but let's throw it in a pot and find out. I think that's a cool idea. once I know what that does, let me fucking just remember it and immediately cook it if I have the stuff for it.
Yeah.
But for some reason they don't. And there is a fucking cookbook in Hyrule Castle.
Steal it. Take it with you.
Well, I mean, you can go to Hyrule Castle. I mean, they talked about it. You can go whenever you want. It's just a matter of if you can survive it. And I assume you can get back out. But I didn't try once I beat the game. I just went to Hyrule and won because that's what I do, and that's what winners do. But I didn't find the cookbook because this game almost like they set up this final fucking fight from the beginning. Like Hyrule Castle is just covered in dark, evil energy shit, and they're like, you're not going to be strong enough if you go right away, but you can, So it's the whole game you're building up this power to like go and storm Hyrule Castle. When I went, I just fucking flew, climbed up the side of it, didn't take the straight route, and I feel like I skipped an entire dungeon.
Probably.
Because I've watched speedruns since then, and it's like, wow, there's a lot more to Hyrule Castle than I ended up doing. I just went right to, I climbed up the side and went fucking right to Ganon.
I'm interested in why does Link have to get more powerful to storm the castle if it's open? Why can't you just, recruit a bunch of friends? Be like, hey, look, all you oppressed people, let's all just, gang up. If you had...
Well, he does. He gets his friends, and if you do the other stuff, that is kind of the game, is getting your friends. I mean, they're all dead, but you get them anyway, and you get their help. And then they do kind of an interesting thing where it's if you just go to Ganon, if what I've learned from these speedruns, if you just go to him, you have to fight all the dungeon bosses before you do the Ganon fight.
So it's like they're there unless you've killed them off in the world or whatever.
Right. And that's pretty cool, except the bosses are all kind of the same, which is a bummer. That was something that, by the last time I talked about it, I had only done one dungeon, I think. And it was okay, but it was kind of brief. There wasn't much, there was an interesting mechanic where you can actually change how the dungeon layout is from the map, you're operating it. But it's still every dungeon is just 4 rooms. It is not elaborate at all.
Yeah, that's what I remember them saying kind of early on, or somebody, maybe it was a hands-on impression, the dungeons are okay, but they're the shrines were really the Zelda-y part of the...
Well, I mean, the dungeons have, the Zelda-y pungent, or the puzzles that you would want. The pungent puzzles. Yes. Yeah. But it doesn't, they don't have anything else really to them. It's okay, I solved these 2 puzzles, and now I fight the boss. And that's something that's bugging me too, is because the bosses aren't really that hard. Compared to some of the enemies you'll fight in the game, the bosses are really easy because they'll always back off, and then you just shoot them with ice arrows or whatever you have the most of. You have fire, shock, bomb, and ancient arrows. So just keep shooting them, and it'll do a huge chunk of damage, and you don't really have to fight. Bosses used to be kind of these puzzles you had to learn and
that was
fight
always
with specific
one of the,
items.
High points or strong points with Zelda games is the boss fights.
Yeah, and I think it kind of ties into what after a few days with the game, what's really bothering me about it. I mean, I still really enjoyed the game, but by going to this open world, they've filled it with once you've seen all there is to see, once you've filled out the map, there's really no motivation to keep digging into the world. None of the items you find are useful. Every chest just has a weapon that's probably not as good as a weapon you already have, so you're not going to equip it. Or it's got fucking chests with money in it, and that's what you're hoping for. And in old Zelda games, it was even if you weren't getting it through dungeons, you were getting items through the world that made exploring the world more satisfying.
Yeah.
And like this doesn't really have that, because everything you find just goes to the same. It either goes to combat, where it's always fucking temporary, or it goes to like status upgrades, the same, like upgrade your health or upgrade your stamina. And it's like, that's why I'm confused why people would want to do all the shrines and shit when you don't need all that to beat the game. So like once you beat the game, why would you keep playing it? Because it's like, oh, well, your stats will be higher, but who cares? Yeah. You've already beaten the game.
You have to either really love what you're doing or just be that like obsessed with Zelda, which there's nothing wrong with, but
yeah, but I mean it's fine, but it's like how much do I like Zelda puzzles? Like, do I like them enough to do all 120 of them because maybe like 10 of them will be really, really good? Like, not really, because I'm not getting anything out of it. Like, the exploration doesn't have any meaning beyond see what's next. Plus, once you see the world of Breath of the Wild, you've seen it. And there's nothing.
It kind of sounded like they were like starting to lock those things behind really annoying fetch quests too. I'm trying to remember exactly what you said, but
yes. And I'll get to that page. Because this helps me keep track while I'm playing the game now. I just grabbed a little notepad and now I'm like taking notes because I know I'm going to want to talk about all this shit. But yeah, the game, it runs out of stuff eventually, and when it does, it is just as obnoxious as any other open world game. That's like, okay, so most of the time, like what I was praising for the game last week is so much of the stuff is like, it's an open world game full of fun Zelda stuff to do. When it runs out of fun Zelda stuff to do, it defaults to like, all right, I need to find this shrine, but before I can go and do the puzzle that will unlock the shrine, I have to find 5 fucking characters in this stupid village, and they're all telling me to get ingredients so they can eat fish. And it's like, I don't fucking have time for that. Like, I don't want to do that shit. Like, just take me to the fun part of the game, which is, the shrines and the puzzles. And it was just tons of stuff like that. The desert. All right, so Gerudo Desert is, I think for a lot of people who really like the game, they did not play Gerudo Desert yet, because that is one of the worst areas in any Zelda game, easily.
Worse than the Ocarina of Time's desert, huh? Which you keep assuring me really isn't that bad, and I'm sure my memory is skewed on it. No. But,
what's fucked about the Ocarina of Time desert is the like stealth section, where you have to like get the goddamn carpenters out or whatever.
It's like the instantly if they see you, it's just fail and restart.
Yeah,
from what I remember, I just hate that mechanic in any game.
Yeah, and well, I got news for you. It's a million times fucking worse in Breath of the Wild.
Let me crush your dreams some more.
Yeah, like the Ocarina of Time one is stupid, but especially now for you, after you've played, games this much, you would be able to see the blueprint of the Ocarina of Time stealth section and get through it pretty easily. Like in the moment, it's annoying, but it's not like once you're seasoned a little bit, it's not that bad. And then after that, the Gerudo Desert in Ocarina of Time is just like they were on a limited thing. They couldn't do a massive sprawling desert, so it was just like you were in a snowstorm or a sandstorm, and you just went from like flagpole to flagpole to the dungeon, and it's not that big of a deal. I will say this for the desert section before I really bitch about it. Getting around in it is pretty cool because you can sand surf. Like you tie a rope to these, I forget what they call them. They might just be called sand seals, but you tie a rope to them and then you ride your shield through the desert, and that's pretty neat. Because you can like fire your arrows and stuff, and there's giant monsters in the desert, and like that stuff is pretty cool. Anyway, there was a shrine there where this woman was like, to like unlock the shrine, because they're your fast travel points, you have to like go up and like interact with it, And the spot where you interact with it, this fucking asshole was just like passed out on the control and wouldn't move for me to get the checkpoint. And she's like, "Oh, I'm done for, but before I die, I need a drink." And it's like, "Oh, fuck you." So you got to go all the way back to the goddamn Gerudo town, go to the bar where the bartender's like, "Oh, I'd love to help her out, but I don't have any ice." All right, where the fuck is the ice? Oh, it's past the goddamn death forsaken ruins to the west of the village. And like, why is the ice over there? It's still in the desert, but they put it over there. Okay, fine, fuck it, I'll go over there and get the ice. Go over, meet the person with the ice, and she's like, "Okay, you can. I'll give you some ice to help her out, but you got to take it. You got to carry it over there before it melts." Fucking minigame shit. And it's not just carry the ice to, the end of this, temple ruin thing. It's full of fucking enemies. And even if you kill all the enemies before you start this, the game treats it as like this fucking mini game. So you have to you have to work around all the enemies, because if they hit you, they'll see the ice on the ground and then they'll fucking melt it with a fire arrow or something. It's terrible. It's not that hard, but so it's just completely.
Her dialogue was, "It's my time, but before I go, I need a drink."
She says, "Oh, I'm dying, but I
can't
would
you
love
just kill her
before I eat."
No, stab her in the face.
No, because you're Link and you're a fucking idiot. Like, there's an actually really funny bit of dialogue where you're in the Lost Woods and one of the Kuroks, or they're these little seed guys. He's sending you on a quest and you're doing the typical Zelda thing of like, I agree. Yeah, I'll do that for you. And he's like, really? If you keep just agreeing to everything, you're going to be taken for a sap one day. And it's like, no shit.
Yes.
So, and you come back and you're like, hey, the fucking drink's waiting for you back at the bar. And she's like, is immediately like, oh, she was fine the whole time. She's just an asshole. And fucking runs back to the bar
then
to get her.
You need to kill her. Yeah.
That is not even the worst part of the desert.
Oh boy.
And I'm glad you reminded me, because I didn't write this down, but it is the worst stealth section I've ever played, ever. So you have to, one of the things for this is main quest, you have to do this, which sucks. But you have to go to this bandit hideout. And I don't even remember the story reason why you're there. I think to reclaim some fucking powerful treasure that helps you get to the dungeon. But you go to this bandit hideout, and they said it it's worse than any other Zelda stealth section. And Zelda stealth sections kind of suck in general. But so they don't usually, in Wind Waker it was okay because they took your weapons and stuff, and there was a story reason for why you have to be careful and not just fight everything. This, like I said, I have 13 weapons, and I have bombs and I have arrows. You go into this bandit fortress fully fucking equipped, and these guards are there, and the whole time the game's like, oh, drop bananas to distract them. Shit, I guess they love bananas.
Well, what bandit doesn't? That's why they're called bandits instead of apple bits.
Right. And if you do a sneak attack on them, you'll basically kill them in one hit, unless you're really just underpowered, you don't have good weapons. But but the sneak attack is so goddamn finicky that he has to kind of charge it up before he hits. So it after a while, it's not really worth it. So I'm trying to sneak past everything, and if they spot you, the alarm triggers, and all the fucking they're kind of like these ninja bandits of the desert, and they all fucking appear and start fighting you, and the game makes you think you can actually fight them off, and you can probably you can kill a few. I know that much, but one hit kills you. And it doesn't send you to a jail cell, It doesn't knock you out or do any magic shit. It's game over. Regardless of
they're ninjas. I mean, they know where to strike.
But regardless of if you have fairies, I had a thing I had got from one of the dungeons that when I died, it has a recharge, but the first time I died, it would refill all your hearts and give you a few temporary ones as like a buffer. Even if you have all that shit equipped, it does not, like, you die in one hit. And it's complete garbage. Like, it's completely arbitrary. The game does not explain why. They don't do anything different. They just hit you with their sword. And it's...
Like I said, they're ninja. You don't need to explain that. Ninja swords are deadly.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Nintendo's brilliant.
Game of the year.
It is...
For that one reason.
But, it is not that hard, and it's not that complex once you kind of figure out what to do, but it is obnoxiously tedious because the area doesn't start with the enemies on a set pattern. They could be anywhere in between their routes. So it's just this tedious, like, okay, I gotta wait for them to get out of the way, and then shoot this thing that drops a banana, and then I can move fucking past them, and then go to the next room and try to figure that out. And if I get busted, I have to start the whole goddamn thing over and over again. And it all ends with a boss fight that is one of the stupidest fucking boss fights I've ever fought, where, like, it's just this, like, it's kind of funny because the whole joke is, like, this ninja chief is a complete incompetent dipshit, but it's not a fun fight. Where it's just like, okay, shoot him with an arrow, he drops the thing on his head, then you hit him a bunch, and then, like, he'll change his attack a little bit, but it's the same process. Shoot him with an arrow, he'll drop his thing, and then hit him a bunch. That shit is terrible. And then the dungeon wasn't that much better. Because the dungeons are all basically these animal robots, right? And the
Animorphs or whatever. I think that was after my time a little bit, but
not Animorphs weren't robots. And don't ask me why I remember terrible shows on Nickelodeon, but I do. But they're like, you know, giant, like, fucking, the first one I did was a giant elephant, and you can manipulate where the trunk is.
Yeah, you were telling me that, like, that was part of the, like, yeah.
And so this one is a camel, I guess. I don't fucking know. After a certain point, it's like, I have no idea what these animals are supposed to be. But this one, like, has no, like, cool interaction thing to it. Like, they all have the same gimmick of you can adjust things. Like you get on a giant robot bird, and it's kind of cool because you can, like, change the direction it's flying and how it's, like, tilted and stuff, and you're in the dungeon as it's tilting, and that lets you kind of, like, fly and get to a platform that's beneath you or something. It's pretty cool in certain areas. But this one, it just rotates its stomach, and it's a really lazy fucking like dungeon design.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't have anything to do with the animal. They're like,
rotate shit, pretty much. And then you have to fight the boss in that stomach. So wherever you left it last is your boss arena. And then the fucking guy is just teleporting on all these platforms, and you can't adjust it in the middle of a fight. So it's just, you're stuck with that shit. It was a terrible boss fight. It was a terrible area. That would immediately, just, like, if I wrote a review about it, it would immediately disqualify the game from a 10 because I hated that area so fucking much. And it has that thing of just, like, I have to keep fucking drinking shit and eating shit to, like, stay cool. And like, you don't get any armor that
hear
helps.
That, kids? You have to drink to stay cool.
Right. You
Brought to you by Zelda.
I didn't want it to be this way. I didn't want it to have to drink. I didn't want to
go
be
clean.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, I'm dealing with what the fucking princess gave me.
That's what's so weird about this community behind it. And you talked about it a little bit with, of course, so what I'd seen it a couple of places, but the big one was Jim Sterling. Was it a video or, like, his actual written review? Like, I don't. It
was his review on his site. He gave it a 7 out of 10, and people just
lost their shit. Was so but weird. The funny thing is, because from what I didn't read it obviously or watch it, whichever video or text, but I don't know what he does. I very rarely pay much attention to Jim, and it's nothing. He's he's just doesn't click with me, but I don't like dislike the guy or like the guy, whatever.
Yeah.
But from what I gathered, he still liked the game, and that's what was happening to a lot of these people. Like, I like it, but it's got some flaws. How dare you? It's like, I said I liked it. It's good, but it's not. Yeah.
I mean, what confused me, and I told you this on Twitter when we were talking about it, like, nothing he said, nothing he criticized the game for was wrong. Like, everything he said was true. Like, that stuff is in the game, and it's annoying, and it's just a matter of how annoying is it to you.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. That's what it boils down to, and that's what all review. We've talked about it forever. When I read a review, which is very rare anymore, because if I'm planning on playing a game, I will not read a review, at least until after I've played it. Some exceptions. If I'm like really, really on the fence about like buying it, then maybe, because it can save me some money. But, there's just certain things, but you just have to know what they are. Like if I'm reading a review and it says like, oh, well, this game I forget which one. It might have been Zelda. No. Horizon. I don't know. One of them that had the like lip syncing issues, like really bad.
That's both of them, honestly.
But if I read something like that, I wouldn't necessarily. I'd be like, okay, that'd probably annoy me, but that's not going to be a deal breaker for me. But for somebody else, it might be, and that's perfectly fine if that's how you feel.
Now, in Horizon, to be fair, you can set the voices to French and act like you're watching a fancy French film. And then you won't care.
But and then if I read something that's like, oh well, you often get hit by enemies that are off the screen and the controls don't always respond. For me, those are like two huge pet peeves of mine, and I'd be like, you know what? I would probably, if I played that game and had those issues, I'd probably score it harshly. But other people, like their tolerance for that is lower. So yeah, I mean, I get it if your argument is, oh, those things that you hate, they didn't bother me. That doesn't make them untrue, though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's my thing is like, I wouldn't, if I reviewed the game, it would be higher than a 7 out of 10. I thought it was an amazing game in a lot of ways, but he's not wrong. Like that shit, everything he talked about was true. Like that shit is in the game. It's just a matter of how much will it piss you off.
Now, like I said, I probably didn't God, I shouldn't try to use fancy words. Probably didn't say it very well on Twitter, but at least my perception of Jim, like I said, I don't know if I even follow his Twitter account. I think I do, but
I don't. But
I might have followed it at one point and quit. But he seems to have kind of gone away from it in recent years, like not even like very recently, but the last couple of years. But at one point, he did seem to really make his reputation on just like ruffling people's feathers and being like outlandish.
He's, his fucking show, he gets on a fake goddamn set and like wears like black clothes and a red tie and acts like he's like proclaiming shit. And
at one point he had like almost a Nazi style armband. I remember, like it wasn't.
Yeah. Like he, which is so fucking weird when you consider his politics. Like,
that's
how much fucking questionable goddamn imagery he chooses to use. Like his set is basically the fucking V for Vendetta villain.
So and that was my only thing is when people are getting mad at him, I get the feeling that he's just doing it for attention, but I don't think he does. I've never felt he's unfair. He might be very vocal or harsh or not hold back, but I don't think he unfairly criticizes stuff. He doesn't like make things up like.
Well, that's the thing. Like I don't follow him. I don't really watch his show. Unless something like this comes up and then I'm interested to hear him out. But I do read his reviews, and his reviews are very, like, you can tell he takes that shit very seriously, and he doesn't, like, he's not obnoxiously, like, personality-driven review guy. Like, he has a personality-driven content, that, like, obviously in the form of his show and stuff. But, like, his reviews, I don't think there's anything wrong with him. Like he does not overly insert himself into them. He gives every game the time of day pretty much. I like, it's just, it was very weird to me, but I do agree. Like, I think he is a shit stirrer at times. I think he's I think he's he
basically got himself
bastard,
blacklisted by like a third of the major publishers. So
yeah,
but again, not necessarily. You could argue it's just like, well, because he wouldn't like kowtow to him, and reviewers shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, he's a very polarizing figure. That's probably the best way to put it.
Right.
But I also do get this feeling, because there are outlets, although they tend to be the smaller, more hobbyist sites, but not always, that do seem to, every time there's a popular opinion about something, they automatically are like, our opinion's the opposite.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have that real smarmy, because I'm smarter than you, like,
yeah.
attitude. Well, so I get that.
The like Ben Matlock delivery.
Yes. Be like, you say this is good? Well, you're an idiot.
I mean, I was excited today, I'll admit, to be like, I know shit that's wrong with Zelda.
That's what I kind of figured. I was like, I do have some stuff to talk about, but I'm like, this is going to be another, like, because I knew, having finished the game, that you had thoughts on it. But
well, because I think like that game, in some ways I wish I could go back to when I was like, to where I was, a week ago. Like, because that's the best time of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, like your first like 2 days where it's just like, oh man.
Yeah. Like when it doesn't take, like when it takes so much effort just to like explore one area of the map, and like the world just has all these possibilities. It's a lot like life. They're really disappointing once you kind of figure it out. But like the shortcomings just become more apparent about Zelda, like once you've beaten it, and the closer you get to beating it. And before we got on Jim Stern, I was talking about the annoying sort of maintenance stuff of like, gotta keep my character cool in this area, gotta keep my character warm in that area, gotta fucking, for some reason, keeping my character cool and keeping my character not on fire are two different things as far as the game's concerned. So like this area, I gotta like get fucking some special potion that's not about keeping cool, but about keeping not on fire.
Well, keeping cool is just sunglasses, like a cool pair of sunglasses in your set.
Well, I'm talking specifically like what you cook and make. It's a different status effect. And then you go to like these places, and then you like in the old Zelda games, like something I kind of liked that I wish, like I understand why they needed to do a formula change. I understand why people were tired of it. But that feeling of I found something and that's going to help me explore the world more efficiently moving forward is a really satisfying feeling. And that gets ripped away from you when anything that does have some sort of permanent effect like that is something you just buy in a fucking shop. Like, it's not something like the armor that helps you not catch on fire isn't something you find. You just buy it in the Goron town. The thing that keeps you from freezing, you just buy it in the fucking bird town.
Yeah, and see, that's what, and you said it was done really well. And wasn't it a Link Between Worlds where you like rent equipment? You can rent equipment and like till you find it or something.
Well, you can rent equipment until the shopkeeper gives you the ability to buy it.
Right, okay.
And that's a pretty good system because, like, if you die, he takes all his equipment back and there's a penalty. To get it all back, you have to rebuy it.
But it still kind of takes away that, and I know that wasn't intentional, but that's one of the things that makes Zelda to me is like, well, first I go to the water temple, but I have to like first find the flippers to unlock that, and like, there was always that kind of progression. And I know they wanted to, it would be really, really hard to call your game an open world game and be as open as Breath of the Wild is, but then make you do that, because that defeats the whole purpose of it being open world. But that does kind of make it.
Well, it's just that like there is a satisfaction for in a game like having you have to find what you need to beat it. Like, not just like, that's the biggest problem with Breath of the Wild to me is like, because everything is pretty much optional, nothing feels essential. Like, there's some cool things that, like, I'm not going to say there isn't stuff that doesn't help you get around the environment in cooler ways, but there's not enough. I want to find the armor by going to by going into these corners of the map that now I'm never gonna go into because I've beaten the game. You know, like I'm not exaggerating. There are like 2 giant areas I have barely touched because I don't need to go there. There's nothing, like, there are shrines. Like, fucking cool, great. Like, I'm missing a couple puzzles. I beat Ganon. Right. There's nothing else.
Oh, but what if Ganon survives? Like, his spirit is in the shrines.
No, he's been sealed. That's the rule. That's always the Zelda rule.
So it sounded like, have you, like, unhooked your Wii U and hooked your PlayStation back up yet? Or are you still kind of...
Yeah. I, credits rolled, and then I was pretty fucking annoyed that, because I might have kept playing it just to, you know, see if there was anything cool that I missed. But the game doesn't let you play off of like, well, you beat Ganon, now go explore what's left of Hyrule. It literally credits and you got to start your fucking save from before the fight. And
I hate that.
There's no reason for it. For a game this open, that like the only reason to do it is like because they fucking know the only reason you would explore any of this shit is because you're preparing for that fight. So yeah, like that shit is to me it's a very real problem with that game. I still think it's excellent. I put countless hours into it, having a lot of fun, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And it's pretty amazing what they were able to do to capture a lot of the Zelda spirit in an open world game. That's literally this open.
It's undebatably the best Zelda game this year.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I could not counter that argument. But I even still kind of stand, like, to me it's like a toss up between that and Wind Waker for like third best Zelda I played. It is very, very good. But there is some problems with it, and you know, I don't know if I could give it like a perfect score if I were to review it.
Yeah. But it sounds very promising from such a huge I mean, it wasn't like they made slight changes to the formula. It was a pretty big deviation.
Yeah.
And Nintendo, despite, I mean, they're weird in that their thought processes and evolution processes aren't always the clearest or the most like straight line, like draw from point A to point B.
I read a thing that said they were like, when making this game, they literally were like listing stuff off that is core parts of the Zelda series and trying to cut out anything that they thought wasn't good or fun, which makes me wonder how the fuck any of this inventory stuff
well, that wasn't, I guess you
on
said,
the list.
Yeah. But I'm hopeful that, because they're undoubtedly already, at least in like the talking and like story, like brainstorming stages of the next Zelda game. I mean, Zelda and like Mario are just games that are perpetually in development. So hopefully they'll be able to learn from it and build from it. And but until then, you heard it here first. Breath of the Wild sucks.
Yeah, it was a piece
even though
of
that's
shit.
not at all what you said, but
apparently,
if you don't absolutely love it, you absolutely hate it. There's no in between.
Yeah, I do love it. It's just flawed. It's a clearly flawed. Yeah, no wonder people were like, turn off all the HUD stuff and just go explore, because like then like in your mind there's possibilities still, and like I know now that like there's nothing really out there. Like,
well, but like you said, that is a perfect metaphor for life. Like, you feel like there's all this stuff out there, and there's not.
Yeah. That's really depressing. Nintendo's letting us know like how fucking hopeless everything is. True artists.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing with my time. And then once I beat that, like once you put that much fucking time into a game, you need, like, I have not felt like playing really anything. Like I played some Madden here and there, and then like fucking Peggle while I listen to podcasts. But
Peggle and podcasts, it's like the sad man's Netflix and chill. Like when
that's actually that's my other show is just me playing Peggle. Yeah.
Well, I started Final Fantasy 15. I had that arrive from a GameFly, free plug to GameFly, but if you want to send me a check, that's great.
Yeah.
It was
or
funny.
Send me a check, even though I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. It was interesting, though, because it kind of struck me that, this is, I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy I have not had a mainline. Final Fantasy is such a fucked up universe, and like their spin-offs and stuff, but like a main Final Fantasy numbered game, there's not one that I love. There's some that I hate less than others, but I am not a Final Fantasy fan. But they have this weird thing where every time one comes out, like leading up to it, I'm like, that looks kind of good. I think I'm going to like it. And 15 did that for me, but so far, like, I am actually enjoying it. But it's one of those, like, weird, like, you're almost just hypnotized into liking it because it's basically like a single-player MMO. It's all just, like, fetch questy. I've barely done any of the main storyline stuff because everywhere you go, somebody's like, oh, well, there's these monsters you could go kill. And you're like, okay. And it's like, oh, well, I need tomatoes for this recipe I want to make. You're like, okay. Hey, by the way, you can go fishing. Okay. Like, none of it's like even that fun, but you're just, every time you do a quest,
there's just shit to do.
Yeah. And every time you finish one, you're like, man, I've been playing for 10 hours. I should probably bathe today. And you're like, but I'll do one more.
So fuck it, I can help my character bathe in the lake with the fish.
So that was my entire Saturday, was just that stuff. But it struck me that like you were at the time complaining about the cooking in Zelda and like just the mechanics and stuff, and I'm like, and I'm sitting here playing Final Fantasy, also gathering ingredients to cook. And I'm like, how weird is that we're playing Final Fantasy and Zelda, and both games were like
fucking cooking.
Right, like cooking has been a profession in Final Fantasy for a long time, but you didn't actually have to like get ingredients, as far as I remember, like any of the ones that I've played. And then there was just a lot of little things like that. Like every time you'd complain about something about Zelda, I'm like, I'm doing the same thing in Final Fantasy, and neither of these are series that are known for these like types of things.
But it almost feels like we're in a weird trend where like it's gonna go away soon, but just like games are like, I feel like games need to remind themselves that like what you want to do in a game is supposed to be fun, and like and next we'll have a Halo game where Master Chief needs to shit. You're like, and you have to manage that.
That would actually, it would gain some. I'm very like hard on Halo, so if I've been waiting for a game because that's what we haven't had yet. There's games where it's like, oh, you have to eat every day and you have to sleep. I mean, there's all these like hardcore survival games. None of them make you stop and take a shit.
That should have been in Firewatch, honestly. Yeah. That would have been a much better game.
You have to like dig the hole and
like the fucking girl's trying to talk to you and it's like, could you really just not talk for like fucking 10 more minutes, please? Like, just I'm turning my radio on.
And that would be a great like dialogue branch. Like, just as you squat, she comes over. She's like, "Hey, I think I see you. I got you in my binoculars." And you're just like, "Oh, son of a."
God damn it.
That's not me. That's some other guy. Somebody stole my ranger uniform. That's weird.
No, that's probably a bear. You're saying
they do shit in the woods. But so no, I mean I'm enjoying Final Fantasy, but kind of in that like hostage situation sort of way. What's that, Stockholm syndrome? Like,
yeah.
Like
so
you start a game like that.
Say enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you start a game like that, and you're like, I'm not sure what I'm getting into, and then pretty soon you're like, shit, I can't leave, and this is not really fun, but I kind of love you. Like,
yeah.
So the funniest part is, out of all the Final Fantasies that I've played, and it's not like by any means like a super extensive list, but it's more than one or two. Like, I've tried to give Final Fantasy a shot way more times than any like reasonable person should a series that they don't like. Out of all of them, this is the one that I have the highest chance of actually finishing, just because it's got that like very MMO feel. The combat's kind of weird. Like, I like that it's real time, but it just feels so fucking haphazard and like not really strategic. Just run around and try to avoid being hit, and I don't know. Like, it doesn't feel deep enough to really hold my attention, but at the same time, it's got that like warp blade, like frantic, like teleporty mechanic to it that's kind of cool. It's very action-y, but I don't know. We'll see. I've got about 8 to 10 hours into it. I think what the saving grace is, from what I remember people talking, is you can really beat it. It's more like a 30-hour Final Fantasy instead of like a 130-hour Final Fantasy. So
yeah. Well, yeah, and what's kind of fucked up right now is just like how many of like these, classic series like Zelda and you know, Final Fantasy and Metal Gear and stuff, like they're all fucking open world now, and they're all these like they are these exhausting fucking like they are work games. Like you have to put hours and hours into them.
That's gamers' fault, so we caused this because all you fuckers out there, they're like, I paid $60 and it's only 60 hours? Fuck you. 0 out of 10. So now they're like, well, fine.
Because I only play 2 games a year, so anyone else who plays more should be fucked.
Me and my wife
never
were
be able to finish anything.
What's so amazing and kind of depressing and sad to me is you get all these games that are like 80 to 120 hour game or more. But that seems to be like almost the standard for like an RPG. Like if your game's AAA and Epic, it's got to be around the 100-hour mark at least. And so that's what we're seeing. And then you have so many people that are like, yeah, I got this game. I pre-ordered it, got it at midnight, and I was finished by Friday. It's like there's not even a that's literally like you finished a 100-hour game in 102 hours.
I literally don't have a life, and I can't do that.
Right?
Like how are you pulling that off? But yeah, I mean, like, I still have Horizon sitting here. I've been meaning to jump back into it, but it's really hard coming off of Zelda to do another open world game.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, well, maybe I'll, do a buffer game with Nier. But then like I read shit about Nier where it's like, no, it's not a massive open world, but there's like fucking 23 endings. It's like, what?
I've heard it called. I got very confused because the other day, I think yesterday or the day before, somebody on Twitter said something about like, man, there's all these open world games like Zelda and Horizon and Nier, and I'm like, wait.
Open world?
Yeah.
Please no.
And then so I looked it up because everything that I've seen on Nier like felt very linear, like not in a bad way, but like I did not.
Action game.
And then apparently, if you want a new controversy in your life, because we're all short on controversies. Google open world Nier Automata or something whatever Automata. Google those two phrases together and you'll just see forum after forum just fucking exploding because some people are like, yeah, it's open world, and other people are like, you're a fucking idiot, that's not open world. And then people are like, well, how do you define open world? Well, now you're nitpicking. It's like, yeah, gamers are the best people in the world for pointless like nitpicky whatever. So apparently Nier is open world-ish in some way that I couldn't even get to the bottom of, because if you mention those phrases, it turns into just insulting each other. Like I was genuinely like trying to figure out, I'm like, oh cool, like in what way is it open world? No, can't. There's no like scientific discovery behind that Google search. It's just, you're a fucking idiot, you're an asshole, none of that matters, you're an idiot, why are you even asking? It's like, whoa. I think I'll back away from this.
I mean, it's better than what the internet usually bitches about. So, a nice, healthy video game argument to me is way better than fucking the other shit I've been seeing these days, but we'll not get into that.
Well, that's what was funny. I mean, it got to like one person's response was, well, if you're going to call Nier an open world game, you might as well like, or no, because somebody like mentions another like, oh, they think they said Dark Souls. They kind of put like, well, it's kind of, Dark Souls is even kind of open world. And they're like, if you're going to retroactively call things open world, well then Mario is open world. And it's like, shut up. Like none of this has to do.
I love that argument. Like, not saying I agree with either side, but just like when someone, well, then I guess you think Dark Souls is open world. It is open world. You're a fucking idiot. Like,
and none of it has anything to do with like the opening question in this like forum thread. Like,
God damn it, is Nier an open world game or not?
Like I said, I genuinely, because I don't know much about the game. I watched some of the like let's plays of the demo that came out, and then I watched like a little bit of like a video review. So I've like seen it in action a little bit. I know it wasn't even a video review. I think it was one of the like, they had that like, every game does it now. They're like, oh, the first 4 hours of Nier gameplay, like the publisher themselves released. I'm like, why would we want to sit and watch the first 4 hours if we want to play? But anyway, so like I had an idea of what the game was. So when I hear that, I'm like, wait, maybe my idea is wrong. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I gave up. Like it was such a minefield. I'm like, I don't care that much. I'll retreat back to Bloodborne and Final Fantasy because that's plenty for me right now. Nier is on my queue though, so I may play it.
Giant Bomb's streaming Mass Effect Andromeda right now, and I have the audio off, but I'm like watching kind of the gameplay, and some of this animation is pretty fucking bad. Like,
oh yeah, I saw somebody tweet, and it was probably from that, a gif of a character like walking away. Like it looked like they had been part of the conversation, but then they were kind of in the background, just like walking away through a bar, and they were like, it wasn't just like they had a stick up their ass. It was like the stick went up their ass, up their spine, and out the top of their head. Like they were walking so weird. Yeah, animation is not BioWare strong. Yeah.
And I heard like the facial stuff was still kind of fucked.
Well, anybody that honestly thought it was going to be markedly changed from the last thing that we saw, it's like the game comes out in 2 months. Oh yeah, we're still working on it. It's like, well, maybe you're tweaking it, but it's not going to be a vastly different system by.
Yeah, it's I mean, they haven't shown any of the combat since I've tuned in, but. Just looks weird. Like it looks like Mass Effect, but like for better and worse. Yeah. Where it's like, like this looks like Mass Effect on the 360. It's I don't know about this game.
No, but it's funny because I talked about it last week or the week before. I pre-ordered it, kind of like I am anything but like. Mass Effect seems to be one of those games, the same with Dragon Age, it's just BioWare in general, that like if you're a Mass Effect fan, most people assume that means like you're one of these rabid Mass Effect fans, these crazy ones like the one we were going to have on our show this week until she backed out.
Yeah.
Jerk.
Yeah, she would be great for this episode because I could be like, what the fuck is this shit we're watching?
Well, that's exactly why I wanted her
actually like defend it.
I'm talking about Kelly. I won't say her last name because I know she's had problems with trolls and stuff, but there are a couple people we wanted to have on, and for me it was kind of from that inquisitive like, you guys
wouldn't get trolls from us because we don't have anyone. We are alone.
Well, we've had a few trolls so far tonight in chat, which is
we always have that.
Well, what's weird to me is
they're not our
how
trolls.
Can you like come in and try to be like, oh, we're gonna troll you and be like, oh, you guys are stupid. It's like you're on Twitch and you're watching us instead of the Power Rangers marathon, so like who's the stupid one here? But anyway,
maybe tipped your hand a little too much there, Steve. But.
No, I say that because I know the internet loves Power Rangers. I do not. But anyway, that was the whole reason I wanted to have him on pre-release, is kind of to catch us up, because I liked Mass Effect 1 and 2, and I liked them more than the average game. But like, I was not a super fan of them so far to the point that I never even bothered to play 3, and it's like. And that's a weird thing when you have a trilogy and you have the conclusion to it. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't really care enough.
But if you played 2, you played the best part. So.
Right. And that's kind of why I never got to 3, is because I had heard that. And it's like, oh, the ending's not something that's like, oh, you have to experience it because it's so mind-blowing. In fact, it was quite the opposite at the time. But I did pre-order Andromeda because I'm like I said last week, it's one of those games that I know I won't hate, or I'm as sure as you can be. You can, sure. Yeah. I mean, we've learned the industry has an unending number of ways to disappoint us, but then we get, my payday was last Friday, and I paid a bunch of bills, and I caught some things up that were a little bit behind. And I'm like, oh, good. Now I got like $200 left for 2 weeks, which we normally cost us like $100 a week in groceries. So this will be fun. So there was a couple of days here where I'm like, I might have to cancel this pre-order, but thankfully,
not a bad idea.
Trump came through for me. It's all him. You know how much I like. I'm going to keep politics off of it, but
yeah.
Hint, I don't actually like him, but the IRS came through for me, and my tax return showed up in like 8 days. I've never had a federal return come back that quick.
That's great for you. Mine was delayed by like a month.
They did that to me last year, like where you get the literal letter, like your tax return is being delayed, and it's like, oh crap, where's the audit letter? And fortunately I didn't get audited last year. Not that I'm hiding.
Well, anything, I didn't get a letter. They just they had a thing where like if you're single and you work shitty jobs for a living, like they.
So if you're a person that really needs your return,
yeah, if you're most of fucking America, they're like, well, we're gonna do an extra special thing for like fraud stuff, and so they were everybody got delayed by like a month.
Sweet.
If they didn't get. I got delayed a month because I actually was responsible and did mine early, and so they were like, "Well, everyone under this thing gets it on like the 15th." And I was like, "Well, fuck you."
And then I said I didn't know about any of that, and I have an actual not attorney, CPA, do our taxes. So maybe it's one of those things where it's like if you file on your own, we're gonna like extra scrutinize, whatever. But I did not expect. Now my state return normally comes back, and that would have given me it's a tiny little bit, but enough of a buffer. But this is the first time ever. I've been working since I was 15. That's almost 20 years ago. I've never got federal before state, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But
Fed before state, man. That's
now I might be complaining next week if that's what saved Andromeda and the game shows up and it sucks. But
yeah, I was gonna say, there's a lot of great games out right now. You might want to be careful.
I know. Well, just between the,
I don't know, stuff about this combat looks okay.
Yeah,
it's just it's such a hard. I kind of get it. Like it seems like it would be a really hard job to make a good Mass Effect game. Like now that you're in a spot where like you have to make a good next gen Mass Effect game.
That's the thing.
It's like there's a lot of expectations there.
Bump up their old engine. They have to like make this so it's definitely a Gen 8 game. I didn't realize how long it's been since 3 came out. Like I feel like that was just a couple years ago, and that was 2012.
Yeah, and even like people were like. You have to remember, even with 3, beyond like most of people's problems with that game was the story, but like people were kind of tired with how Mass Effect felt then. So to like say, hey, we made a new Mass Effect game and like the animation's still kind of fucking weird and like, it really depends. Like how that action plays, unfortunately, might be, the big selling point, and I'm surprised I'm saying that about Mass Effect, but like it seems like that's the most interesting thing to me about it is the idea of like Mass Effect combat where you can kind of zip around with a jetpack. Like that seems seems like the most like that seems right. I can finally be Buzz Lightyear, and that's a fucking great idea. If you're gonna play Mass Effect Andromeda, make your character Buzz Lightyear,
or Barney Rebel. Wrong Barney. Barney Gumble. The doobie doo. I don't know if you've seen well, you're not a huge Simpsons person, but the classic Deep Space Homer where he goes to space. He has to beat Barney out for the spot, and
I mean, just great I like the Simpsons, but I haven't.
Yeah, you haven't seen every episode 30 times like I have, but
yeah. And believe me, they try. There's a lot of easy ways to watch The Simpsons now.
I give them credit for that.
It's like fucking like for some reason, it's easier to get fucking Simpsons episodes than it is to get clean drinking water, and it's really weird.
Bazinga.
Yep. Yeah,
no, not Bazinga. That's but whatever. So I'll have Mass Effect coming next week, unless I change my mind and cancel it before then.
I should have Nier on Friday, but then it'll have to download.
Yeah, you installed a new video card, and I don't see smoke like on your camera, so it must have worked.
Fucking dude, so I was talking with you about it, I wanted to get a new video card, and my brother already got one because he got one that would he was getting another monitor, and this one, I guess, played better with the new monitor. And I was just it came to me, I was like, well, how much memory is on your old one? And he was like, it was higher than what I had. It's not a substantial upgrade, but I was like, could I just buy that off you? And he was like, yeah, $60 and it would be good, which is pretty good for a fucking video card. But that means I have to open my computer up and do shit with it, and that's always nerve-wracking. So I put it in, and I'm just I'm used to RAM and stuff, how you have to really shove shit in and it clicks and stuff. This did not do that. Nothing felt like it was in all the way or latched. And then and just every time I've ever done anything with this computer, I love my computer, and building a computer was the best thing I've ever done. Because because my life is pretty bad, but that is the high point right now. But every time I've like modified it at all, I try to turn it on and it just doesn't. Like you hear the power supply kind of like, and then like one fan turns on and is like, oh shit. And you spend like an hour after that, like just unplugging shit and plugging it back in and wondering what the fuck did I do? What did I break? And then like eventually it just randomly turns on its own. Yeah, I hate messing with computer stuff, but once you get it working, it's pretty great.
I always get these unreasonable expectations. So anytime I would upgrade something, it'd be like, I'm going to put this extra stick of RAM in, and then suddenly everything's going to be like 3D, like virtual reality beamed into my brain. And then you turn it on, you're like, well, I guess like I'm getting 60 frames a second now.
Yeah, the only thing, it's sad to say, but the one game that could really test this video card was Watch Dogs 2, and I uninstalled that, and I was like, well, I'm not reinstalling it just to like see if the video cards, all the effects have happened, but whatever, it's in there. Everything I've checked says everything's fine, so hopefully when Nier shows up, I'll be okay.
Hopefully.
What time?
Because like if your computer catches fire, we won't be able to do this show, and
oh, what a trauma. I mean, then we'll just have to start
like the
doing
most
our
like self-deprecating show on Twitch, I think, but which is funny because like I've said before, like I'm obviously out of touch with internet culture because every now and then I'll be like, I'm going to check out some of these like podcasts that are streaming and see like, what are the other people doing? And you're just like, oh. And then you look down at the viewers and it's like 47 million. You're like, huh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I fully admit we have no idea what we're doing.
No, not at all.
Ever.
But in our defense, we've only been doing this every week for like 6 years.
Yeah, but we never tried. Turns out 6 years of non-effort is,
it's kind of like
about on par with 0 days of real effort.
It's kind of like the guy that goes to the gym every single day for 2 hours, but never puts like the exercise bike. Like he just rides the same bike and never puts it above level 1.
Yeah, we are the podcast equivalent of going to the weight room and kind of watching everyone else work out. Maybe nodding like, yeah.
Benching the empty bar every single day and never upping and be like, yeah, I can do this a little bit really well.
Hold it. Nice.
I like that we're both like, we're fitness experts now.
Far from it, believe me.
No,
like I feel stronger, but I'm sure I'm like making things way worse for my body.
Yeah, like it'll be one of those things where it's like, okay, now today I'm gonna up the weight by like 5 pounds, and then you'll hear the pop as you're.
Well, you were getting more muscle, but the problem is all the muscles were suffocating your heart. So
yeah, I mean, I saw a couple weeks ago that dude from Biggest Loser had a heart attack. It's like ha.
That is a really fucked up, dark way to look at someone.
He lived, I think.
His only crime was, but still, his only crime was, taking care of himself.
But it didn't work, sucker.
Fucked up.
I'm sticking to my bacon cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
No, that's like that argument. I get it all the time. Like I don't know if I talked about it on the show. I had a client a couple months ago now, but she was in, and we were talking about auto accidents because for spoiler alert, I sell insurance. That's why I'm so boring on the podcast. But
years of training.
Yeah. But we were talking about auto accidents, and she was like, yeah, I worked as a ER nurse for years. And she's like, I think she said like 20 years. And she's like, I never wear my seatbelt because twice I had people come in that were in auto accidents and their neck got broken by the seatbelt, and they would have lived if they hadn't been wearing that seatbelt. So I never wear mine. I'm like, yeah, but you understand the thousands of people that didn't get to the ER because they were wearing the seatbelt, like that didn't get injured at it's one of those things. My brother's like that. He's like, well, there's been people that die because they're wearing their seatbelt. It's like, well, yeah, the seatbelt isn't to put this on and you're invincible, but
or die because they're not. So it's
Exactly.
It's really a gamble, and the people who don't are more betting on superstition, which
Right.
is fine for sports, but probably not good for something you're going to do, every day.
Right. And my whole point is that's kind of like the health thing. It's easy to say, like, look, this guy was super in shape and he worked out every day and he still had a heart attack. So fuck it. I'm going to eat cheeseburgers all day. It's like, well, yeah. But the real lesson there is that dude would have been dead if he ate cheeseburgers all day, but he probably only survived because he was in shape. Yeah, but anyway, I still like it. Still was kind of one of those when you're a fat dude and you see a shaped dude have a heart attack, you're kind of like, ah.
Well, I mean, it just for me, it just sort of reaffirms that we really have no idea what the fuck we're doing as people, and we have no real idea of health. If everything people said about health was true, my dad would have died fucking 20 years ago because he's smoked all his fucking life. He just lives on fucking milk and Nutter Butters. It's absolutely, he is one of the most unhealthy men on the planet, and somehow he's fucking outliving fucking people that are taking care of themselves. It's like
genes. It's all in the and I don't mean genetic genes. I mean it's what kind of genes you wear. Like Levi's, they do pretty well.
I think it's destiny because he doesn't wear. Yeah, it's the game. Big fan. But he doesn't wear jeans, and that's probably the secret. We probably are killing ourselves.
Oh shit, we'd live forever if we just quit wearing pants altogether. Yeah. But I don't know how we got on this conversation, but it's kind of one of those we had a lot to talk about two games, but
I fucking bitched about Zelda.
You said you haven't tried Disc Jam yet, right?
I only did that training thing that one night, and then I was like, I don't really want to deal with the matchmaking. Even if it does work, I just don't feel like it.
The bigger problem isn't the matchmaking, which can suck. Normally if I'm doing that, I make sure to have my phone or tablet handy, because it's one of those things where sometimes you get matched right away. Sometimes it's 5 minutes to find a match. So you want something to do in the meantime, but I don't want to say that's fine. That's a problem, but it's not game breaking. Yeah. The problem is it's a multiplayer game based on twitch reflexes and insane, not insane speed, but fast speed. It's basically tennis with a frisbee of death. Right. But then you get latency in the match, and that just fucks that all up, because you'll have matches most, in fairness, probably 4 out of every 5 matches I play are completely fine. But that 5th match, it'll be oh, the opponent has the disc. Oh, the disc just teleported into the net.
Yeah, it's that fighting game thing of just
yeah, if there's any lag whatsoever, you're fucked. And
yeah, that's whatever. I mean, but that's, people got used to that with fighting games. They'll probably get used to that with this if they enjoy it enough. So
that's the other problem, is it's not deep enough or good enough to be oh, I'm gonna and I don't want to. It's worth checking out, especially if you have Plus. It's free, so
to be fair, fucking people play dive kick, got into that. So it doesn't have to be a complex fighting game to necessarily.
But I mean, not even complex. Complex, probably the wrong word, or deep, but it's just not that engaging. There's not that much about it that's oh man, that's so fun, I want to do it again. I don't know. Maybe I'm just salty because I went for a 30 game win streak, and now it's more 50-50 again. It's oh, people are learning how to play. That's sad.
Yeah. But no, they're getting good. Yeah. I mean, I played the training, everything. The most I can say, it seemed to work, but I didn't.
I haven't even attempted the 2-on-2 yet, because if you can't get a solid 1-on-1 match network wise, that seems just like a nightmare. But
2-on-2 might be better with if you got someone, a local multiplayer thing. But
I don't know. Did I talk last week about, because I also downloaded Tearaway. That's
I played a little bit of that, and I was surprised what kind of game it was, and I was
I was a little disappointed.
Yeah.
For instance, it's not until that it's one of those where they're levels. Each area is technically a level or a chapter, I think they call it. And it's not till chapter 3 that you get the ability to jump.
Yeah, and it's
slow and awkward. The camera sucks.
like the way the game sets itself up is like you're not actually playing as this paper character in this like interesting paper world. You are playing as somebody controlling the paper character in this paper world, and that's kind of...
And I kind of forgot about it, but that all, I think, is a problem with it being, because this wasn't a game developed for PlayStation 4. It was a Vita game that they ported to 4. And it was a Vita game designed to highlight all the... It was one of those like launch games like, oh, the Vita has a touchscreen on back and it has a camera on front and, you know, a microphone and this and that. And it was a game that was really like Sony pushing like, oh, implement all those like little gimmicks into this game, you know, to show off the system. And it was kind of in a cool way, like that terror in the sky. I remember at like one point the camera would just like make it so like you're looking down, like it's like you're literally looking into this world, which adds nothing of value to the gameplay, but it's kind of a neat little touch. Did you get to those pads that you have to hit the touchpad on the DualShock 4 to like make them, they're like drums?
No, not even that far.
Yeah,
I got tired of guiding things with a light into holes.
Yeah.
And I was
Fortunately, that didn't last very long at all. That was terrible. But there's like these little pads, and they work like trampolines, but basically you stand on them and then you hit the touchpad on the front, and it'll like tap like it's a drum, and it'll shoot you up into the air or enemies. And it's like it's a neat mechanic, except for the whole point of it on the Vita was the touchpad's on back, so it's like you're drumming the back of the thing with your finger and flicking, you know, they're trying to make it feel like you're looking into a diorama, basically. And it would feel like that a little bit on the Vita at least, but on the PlayStation 4 you lose that in the translation. And like I said, none of those have any impact on the gameplay itself, but if you lose all that like hook, then you're just left with a kind of mediocre 3D platformer. That was really disappointing because it had such a cool, like...
I mean, I don't want to say disappointed necessarily because, like, it's free, you know?
But I mean...
to me, it's more like a grateful, like, well, I'm glad I didn't buy that. Like,
well, that's true. But I think for me, what it was, I just finally renewed my PlayStation Plus sub because I just finally got a PlayStation 4 and moved out of the cave I was living in, or under the rock, whatever. But so when I renewed, one of the current free games was Little Big Planet 3, and I was like, cool. That's kind of a game that looks like very child. I love that Sackboy like stuff, like sock monkey type style or whatever. And so I was interested to play it, and so I downloaded it, and it's terrible. I mean, it's a very kid game, and it's got its utility, but as a gamer that wants an actually good game, it's a very floaty, kind of crappy platformer. But then when they announced, okay, well, next month you get Tearaway, I'm like, oh, cool. Well, that one's bound to be better than Little Big Planet. And, I mean, it is, but that's not saying a lot. So, like, both of them had my hopes up for, like, kind of a cool, like, kind of just a childish, not, you know, nothing, like, super serious, of course, because they're both games designed at kids. But, yeah.
Well, just wait a while. Ukulele will be out, and you'll love it.
True. Or I'll remember that I didn't really love Banjo-Kazooie. I probably shouldn't say that on the internet, but...
No, you should not. You shouldn't say that to me. What the fuck you mean?
Didn't hate it. I just don't have the same, like, rabid love for it that most people have, but...
I don't either. I never beat it. Yeah. And, well, I did beat it, like, a couple of years ago for the first time after watching speedrunners be like, it's really easy to fuck up the final boss, but... Like, I didn't beat it as a kid or anything. I liked it, but it was...
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those that, like, even at the time, even now, but at the time, like, I kind of would get them confused when I think back about them, about, like, Banjo-Kazooie and Crash Bandicoot. And of the two, Banjo-Kazooie was the one I liked. Crash Bandicoot I thought was a mess, but a lot of people...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a mess by current standards than... it was then, because when those were first coming out, it was like, what are you comparing it to like Mario 64, which is like, for as much as people like that game has shit tons of problems. Like
yeah,
they just
yeah. Well, I think that was the bigger thing is
had so much problems. That was like
at the time, like Mario 64. Even if you know it has problem, I still love it. I still like it on 3DS. But
see, here's my fucking internet moment. I fucking hate 64. I really don't like that game. But
mine, I guarantee it benefits from the nostalgia because I remember. You know, when the N64 came out, it's like, wow, look, this system can do 3D. I mean, I know PlayStation was around. I think PlayStation came out before 64. I didn't have an original PlayStation until late in its life, whatever. But in 64, you're like, wow, look at these graphics, and it's 3D, and it's amazing. And it was one of those things that I asked for Christmas and got because I was a lucky kid to have parents that could buy him stuff like that for Christmas. And Mario 64 was the game that they bought with it. I don't think it was bundled at the time, but so it was kind of that like magic. Like that was the game that introduced me to that next generation of Nintendo games. So it's got that going for it for me. But then you have, I'm trying to think, Rare.
Hang on, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, the PlayStation came out a year before the N64.
I thought so, but PlayStation, like, well, it's just like today. Nintendo just was a whole different like vibe too, like because it's always that cartoony Nintendo stuff. But so it's special to me for that, and I'm sure it benefits. It's getting extra points on the scale just because of that.
But and that's gonna happen with every game that sticks with you.
And Rare with Banjo-Kazooie was more that cartoony Mario style 3D platformer, whereas Crash Bandicoot, even though it's cartoony, Sony always had that kind of, I don't want to say grittier because that's stupid to say gritty and then Crash Bandicoot, but they were like going for that more.
There was like a
like in your face, like
kind of like a pop culture style behind it. Like it was it seemed like a very conscious, like, we're going to have the fucking cool mascot, man.
You're going to go skating and writing graffiti on brick walls because you're a badass.
Crash is the guy you'd want at your party because he'll fucking break all your shit and you'll have to clean it up. Like you'll
the Cat in the Hat, basically. But
except, Cat in the Hat was, Cat in the Hat was probably worse because he seemed to be very deliberate. Crash was just a wild one.
Yeah. I don't remember the book Cat in the Hat much, as a kid, but every time I've seen like the movie or the animated like one, it makes me realize I'm like, this guy is just a dick. Like, what is the moral of this story supposed to be?
Yeah, you fucking clean it up, asshole.
He shows up, he's like, hey, I know your parents said not to do this, but let's burn the house down. And then they do, and he's like, ha, dipshits, I'm out of here.
We're gonna need their credit card information for this next part. And like. He's a fucking weasel.
And from what I remember, there's no like redeeming. Like most of the stories at the end have a redeem. Like he comes back, he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll help you."
So here's thing 1 and thing 2, and they have he doesn't even do it. Yeah. He has his fucking slaves do it. He's fucked up.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, here's these bitches that want to be part of my posse. I'm gonna make them help you, and I'm still not gonna be friends with them. Ha ha. Like I don't. Yeah. And then they went
like of all the things that could be the mascot for Dr. Seuss. That is
And then they go and make it a Jim Carrey movie of all things. Like,
that was Mike Myers. It was.
Oh, was it? Yeah. Okay.
It
was Mike Myers trying to be Jim Carrey. Yeah. And I hated the Jim Carrey Grinch too, but
I was a kid when that came out. I was fine with it. See, it wasn't a classic like the fucking.
The dog's not happy with our cinematic tastes, but I will clarify real quick before we go, not that it matters because nobody cares, but I do not dislike Jim Carrey in particular. He's just one of those actors that has some like really shitty movies and some really good movies, and then some that you just forget about. But
sure.
But I mean, Mike Myers, on the other hand, no, his stuff's all crap.
The thing I respect most about Jim Carrey as the Grinch is apparently that makeup was like getting that makeup on him was fucking awful.
Yeah. I remember reading something like it was like an 8 or 10 hour process every day of shooting, like before you even can start the scenes. Like, no. And
I respect like when a movie's like, all right, we're gonna do makeup, like we're not gonna just put some shit on your face and go with CG, like which would have been really probably in the long run the way to go for what that movie turned out to be, but like I respect like kind of the art of like we're gonna try to make this look authentic.
Yeah, well, and the other thing I always respected about it is because a lot of people gave him shit because he went from doing like his like Dumb and Dumber and like Ace Ventura stuff to doing a lot of that like goofy, like I'm gonna just be Jim Carrey but in kids stuff. But he did it because he had kids and he wanted to be in movies that like he could show his kids and be proud of. Like, there's nothing that's cool when actors and actresses do that, and a lot of them do. He's not the only one.
I mean, I wouldn't say cool. I would say it's the natural order of like artists sucking when they get families.
And then their kids finally get older and you're like, thank God he's back to the other stuff again. But anyway, we're not we should be a movie podcast. We've got good movie tastes.
Yeah, sure do. All the movies we could talk about came out 15 years ago and just happened to be on Netflix.
We're going to need a bigger boat. I can quote Jaws all day, but only that line.
You guys remember that movie?
Yeah.
You remember Jaws where he was like, he had black eyes, these doll's eyes, like that was a fucking great movie, huh?
We're not shutting this beach down. We need it. Oh, a kid got cut in two. How did that happen, Sheriff? I mean, it's like I'm making fun of it. That's genuinely like one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Jaws.
I'm making fun of it. I'm making fun of the idea that we're going to talk about Jaws on a podcast. Convince people it's a good movie.
I saw Logan, so I feel like I'm almost current with. I mean, nobody's talking. I saw it after everybody was like, "Oh, Logan, blah blah blah, this or that," and then they're like, "Oh, we're on to other stuff." And I'm like, "I'll go see Logan."
Yeah, I heard there's this Logan fella at the movie theater. Yeah, I mean, only thing that could get me to a movie theater apparently is John Wick. So
yeah,
and that will probably be the only movie I see this year. So
they made John Wick, and you went there quick.
We should fucking shut this down because that was terrible. And you're terrible. And goodbye, everybody. This was terrible. I can see you later.
See you later.